Canal Multimedia, derecho a tus oídos. Desde la Ciudad de México, la frecuencia de la Facultad de Derecho para el mundo. EUS Canal Multimedia Radio. EUS Canal Multimedia presenta
Derecho y Estado, conducido por Miguel Ángel Garita Alonso, Leonardo Vargas Sepúlveda y Rafael Jiménez Suberville. Un programa del Seminario de Teoría General del Estado.
Hi, welcome to the Law and State program of the Faculty of Law. We have two amazing and very special guests. First of all, Dayna Bowen Matthew, Director of the George Washington University Law School. Please welcome.
I'm so glad to be here.
And Shehernas Joshi, Assistant Dean and in charge of graduate and international programs.
Thank you. It's a
welcome.
pleasure.
Also, we want to thank our institutional linkage coordinator, Roberto Cabrera, for bringing very important academics and authorities of George Washington University. And well, we want to thank those who follow us through Facebook Live and social networks in this program, Law and State, which is broadcast every Wednesday at 12 through the EUS Multimedia channel. On behalf of Doctora Sonia Venegas and the General Theory Seminar of the State, and as a moderator, we extend a very warm and welcome to you. So now we begin. The topic, why study an LLM at George Washington University Law School? Well, we have been listening throughout the day, both during the meeting we had with our Director of Law School, Sonia Venegas, and in the institutional talk that very kindly Sheherna Joshi gave to our students community in the auditorium a few minutes ago. But I would like to ask you very sincerely, why do you think our law students should pursue an LLM at your beautiful George Washington University?
Thank you for the question. First, let me say thank you for having me. The Dean of a Law School doesn't often get an opportunity to speak on a live podcast, so thank you very much. First, let me tell you, the fact of the matter is that there's no better law school in the country than the George Washington University Law School to study an LLM. No place. Now, I'm a little bit biased, but I'm going to back this up with facts because I, too, am a lawyer. So I'll start by telling you the LLM degree's value and worth first, and then I'll tell you why ours is so special. An LLM is an advanced degree for someone who's fully trained in the law, and your educational system here involves 5 years of legal education, so the people here who would graduate and be ready to come to our LLM are already lawyers. An LLM is an expertise on top of that. It can be specialized or it can be general, but it adds a level of complexity, of sophistication, of knowledge and information that would augment the fundamental knowledge of a student who finishes the 5-year program, for example, at La UNAM. Now, why would this be so useful? Well, for one thing, it will set you apart in your practice of law so that you are more of an expert in a given field than those who have just done the basic law curriculum. Secondly, it will give you access to a global community, a community of scholars that comes from around the world to our program, an LLM, from around the world in order to advance their understanding and their knowledge of how the law can be used to solve problems. That network will go with you forever. And third, it will enhance your career. So when you go for a job in your home country and you're competing against someone who does not have an LLM, your experiences, your network, your knowledge, all of this will set you apart. So that's why the LLM generally. But the best LLM is the George Washington University LLM. I'm going to call my school GW Law for short. And I have 3 reasons we'll talk about during the hour. Number 1, it's located in Washington, D.C. There's no place like Washington, D.C. to study for an LLM. Number 2, it is a small, intimate program that is integrating our LLM students with our JD students. So you get all the same professors, all the same curriculum. And number 3, we have Sheherna Joshi. She makes it so special, so personalized, so unique an experience. And the word is experience. we pay attention to not just what you learn in the classroom, but Sharanaz Joshi, as the dean of the LLM program, helps to get an education outside of the classroom.
Wow, that sounds really attractive, very impressive to know. And thank you, you two, for being here. And I would like to ask a question regarding the US and the LLMs. Why going to the US instead to Spain, UK, or France to earn LLM? Joshi, I would like if you could give us like a clue or about it.
So the opportunity to study in the US gives you not only an understanding of law as it is made in the US, but we're also learning from the LLM students that come into the classroom. And so when you are learning about the law, you are also learning the comparative viewpoint. Now in the US, law schools are very different from Australia or Singapore or the UK. There is a focus on both the doctrinal learning, but also more importantly on the practical aspect of the law. And at GW Law, being in Washington, D.C., we're able to take what students are learning in the classroom and having them put into practice. And I think that is unique in the U.S. compared to other places around the world. When students come into the LLM program, and we have students actually coming from the UK, from Australia, from Singapore, from Dubai, who are coming to learn the law. Actually, one of my questions I always ask them is, why did you choose the US? Why not just do the degree back home? First of all, you have the advantage of familiarity, right? Because you're already familiar with the educational system, with the legal system. Their answer is always because the perception of law as it is made in the US will change my perception of law as a lawyer. And so for them, it is to gain an understanding of how law is made in the US so that they can take it back home with them. And so I think the US is very attractive in that respect. And it gives them the opportunity to also have the cultural experience, because it's as important to come to the US to get the degree, to get that specialization, to become the subject matter expert, but it's also about the cultural immersion of, as we were talking in the auditorium, right, about students who want to have the understanding of what a U.S. law school is from a personal perspective compared to what they've seen on a movie screen, for example. Dean, they were like, do you want to go to a campus that we see in a U.S. movie, the ivy-covered walls
Yes.
and the football games?
Yeah.
Or do you want to come into an environment of learning that actually brings the law into the building, as we do? And so I think that's unique also in U.S. law schools, that we are more focused on not just bringing the students in, but also bringing our legal community into the building so that the students learn from them as well as from our faculty.
Wow, thank you so much for sharing that vision. Dean, I would like to ask you, which are the values of George Washington University? Why? I mean, you give us already a big picture, but which are the main values of the law school?
This is the most important question. But can I take a detour before I answer the most important question?
Yes.
I just want everybody to know we have a football team too. So I don't know when this will air, but the Washington Commanders, if you're watching football, we're doing okay. We have baseball, soccer, we call it football. So there's lots of fun in DC also. Now to the real question, right? What are the values? So we as a faculty have agreed on a mission statement for our law school. And it begins like this. The George Washington University Law School is a global law school that exists to have an impact on the law. So the two words I want to highlight there are global and impact. The values of our school are really embodied in both of those words. The global community is a complex and diverse community. We embrace many different viewpoints, many different methodologies, many different races, ethnicities, cultures, genders, and every form of diversity, because we believe that in order to solve some of the most pressing challenges of our time, we must impact the law in order to address the challenges of society. A second word, impact, also tells you a lot about our values. There are many fine, in fact, 200 fine law schools in the United States. Ours is set apart because we train and equip lawyers not just to think about the law, not just to write about the law, not only to look at the history of how law was formed and what it accomplished in the past, but we hope to train and equip lawyers to change the law, to use the law, to apply the law, and make sure law is a part of the creative problem solving that we face on this planet. Our countries, our governments, our constitutions, our democracies, our climate, our freedoms, all of these require law to protect them. And our law school values that impact.
Wow, that's tremendous to know that that an institution, private institution, care about those things and is aware that we are facing challenging moments for diversity, human rights, and that you take seriously and you have those values with you, inside you as institution. I would like to address a question regarding your location. Why Washington? Why go to Washington and not to New York, Boston, San Francisco, Chicago, Seattle? Why Washington? What Washington has to offer to students? Yoshi, I will guess that this question may be for you.
You're absolutely right. There, as the dean said, there are 200 law schools in the U.S., but we're uniquely positioned because of our location. So we have what we call a DC-infused education. And that is, again, going back to my point where we are surrounded by legal experts. Next week, one of the Supreme Court justices is coming in to judge the Van Vleck competition.
Wow.
Being in DC gives us the ability to interact at all levels of the legal society. And so when you look at other law schools, yes, they have advantages, but our location being in the center of the capital gives us the opportunity to engage that more deeply with both the academic community as well as the practitioners.
Wow, thank you so much for that, Ansel, and definitely, and this is, I have been there several times, and I will say that when you are in DC, you don't feel like you are in Texas. You feel that you are in Europe, because it's, I will end to that the communication, I mean the transportation system is excellent, and super diverse. So I will strongly recommend Washington to be considered, George Washington, but also because of the city. Dean, I would like to ask you, how about, I mean, you already talked about the values of the law school, but I would like you to explain to us about your academic staff. What make them outstanding from other places in the U.S. and in the whole world?
Sure. I like a lot of your questions, Roberto, because you're asking us to compare ourselves. And what I'm going to tell you is what makes us distinguished and distinguishable. I will admit immediately that GW Law may not be for every student. If you want to be in Texas where it's nice and quiet and where the people have rolling hills and where the weather is warm all the time, you should go to Texas. You don't want to come to GW. But our faculty are what make us great. Our faculty and our students. So, what distinguishes our faculty? Their impact, again, is so important because our faculty have government positions in their resumes, and they then have private practice in their resumes, and they then have industry in their resumes, and they bring all of that into the classroom. There are other law schools where that's not valued. Another factor or feature of our faculty is how they continue to have influence and impact. So you might be taught international law by someone who is also representing Armenia in The Hague in the International Court of Justice. That's a GW law professor. You might be taught property in the morning, property law at 9 a.m., and then you will follow your property law professor to Capitol Hill, where they'll raise their hand and be sworn before Congress to influence the privacy law, the intellectual property law of the United States evolution. So you see what I mean? I'm going to use the phrase again that Shehnaz used, DC-infused education. That means our faculty bring their influence in the Washington D.C. community into the classroom, and they take their classes out to the Washington D.C. community. It's like I said this to you. You go to a fancy hotel, and in the lobby there's a big dispenser of fancy water. It has water and it has ice, but it has also got fruit in it, or cucumbers, or something floating in it to infuse the water with those flavors. Our faculty infused the educational experience in DC with the flavor of DC.
Wow, that I mean I would like to be young again to be enrolled at watching George Washington, because you are really encouraged me. Like, yes, Joshi, I know that your LLM, it's designed for people who want to do private, public law, also academia. Can you tell us about which of these specialization is the highest light? I mean, like the one that feel you more proud it, or all of them make you feel proud? The private, the public law, the ones that focus on academia, or any specific that you think that, oh, this one is like top.
That's a hard question, because for me personally, I'm proud of all of them, because each one is unique. Each one brings a different perspective to an LLM student. So for somebody who is interested in intellectual property, we're one of the top 3 in the country, and you can study patent and trademarks, or you can look at entertainment law, and you're learning from a plethora of faculty and scholars. But then you have international and comparative law, where we shine in the area of human rights law, where we, as Dean Matthew said, we have faculty who are going before the ICJ to litigate, and who are part of the UN Commission, and who have written some of the handbooks and the guidelines to the UN conventions on the Treaty of War, for example. So there is so much to offer that each program is unique, and it brings value to the student depending on their area of interest. It would be hard for me to rank. We have business and finance. We have the national security program, which is growing in the area of cybersecurity law. Each one is unique. Each one is strong. It really depends on what the LLM student is looking for.
Wow. Because that's very important thing that you are mentioning to us, because not all programs in the US, they have they that kind of varieties of options for their students. And normally, I mean, when people go spend a lot of money on money and time on a program, choosing an institution, the institution, I mean, people change options, change minds. So I guess that one of the strengths of an institution like you do is offering like diversity of models of specialization. Imagine someone who goes to you and at the end arrive at DC and say, I think that my goal is not intellectual property. I think that I am more for human rights.
Exactly.
You know? So
That's a wonderful point, Roberto, and I will agree wholeheartedly with what Shehnaz Joshi just said. Let me add to it. One of the things that she referred to was the fact that we have a Supreme Court Justice, Ketanji Brown Jackson, coming to judge our moot court competition. That's a oral advocacy challenge that starts in our first year. And the winners start with hundreds in the first year, tens in the second year, and there are only 2 teams now competing. Every single year that I have been at GW, and every single year that I can see forward, there will be at least one Supreme Court justice from the United States Supreme Court at our school. And it will be either Clarence Thomas or Chief Justice Roberts or Ketanji Brown Jackson. But that's because we are steps away from the Supreme Court and steps away from the IMF, the World Bank, the State Department, all of these. So every one of our programs has this ability to attract luminaries, the lawmakers, the leaders to our school so that our students get exposure to them. So I'm going to pick up on one that you may not know much about. We have a national security, cybersecurity, and foreign relations program. Well, just 2 months ago, we had the Director General of the International Atomic Energy Agency. This Director General has been responsible for disarming nuclear plants in war zones in Ukraine,
Wow.
renegotiating the terms of the Iran non-proliferation agreements, helping to find nuclear submarines that have been lost. These are the kind of people that come to any one of our programs. That's why we can't pick. It's a locational advantage that's rather unfair, if I may say so. Everybody comes to DC, and so we expose our students to all of these great thinkers.
Wow. I mean, definitely, I mean, something that I truly like about your law school is that due to the location, you got the contacts. I mean, you got the facilities to bring the student a global career and to connect them to the whole world, to put the whole world on the hands of the students, and that is something that we are really looking for, UNAM, to send our students to you, to give them the opportunity to, what we say in Spanish, eat the world, eat the world, and basically the world is becoming more globalized, and even though there are certain nationalists that they want to close borders, but that's impossible at this stage of humanity. So my next question will be, the whole world is changing constantly. The whole world is transforming itself. So, do you often change your student plans, your tracks, and how often do you update the academic offers?
Every year.
Every year.
Every year.
So
all of the programs I was mentioning, they're run by deans who are subject matter experts. And they take a very careful look at the course offerings, and they look at what's happening in the academy, and they look at the publications and what scholarship is going on outside of GW Law. And then they see what are the new courses that we should develop, who are the scholars we should bring in to teach our students. So every single year our faculty takes a deep dive into the curriculum to see how and what we can do to make it even better for our students for the following year.
wow, that's
Dean Matthew?
Yeah, and one of the things that drives that reevaluation every year is how we can get our students better prepared for jobs, right? Our students come to us as a professional school because they want a career. They want to practice law, or they want to influence law as a leader in a legislative body, or they want to use law to help run a company. But they are looking for jobs, and our curriculum is updated regularly as we talk to people who are in practice about how practice is changing, about how the world is changing, and what we need to equip them, our students, and prepare them for jobs.
That's very important. I mean, absolutely, because people wants to get educated for real life, for a world that is changing. And that is coming to my next question. I would like to know how how do you see the law in your Washington as something that so that means that you see the law something that changes, that need this other subject to be understood. Do you have close relations with other departments to help you to understand like those political social facts, so that you can teach law for things? How do you see the law interdisciplinary?
He's trying to get us in trouble because I'm sitting next to a professor of constitutional theory, and my answer is going to clearly scratch the surface of what you teach and Miguel. So you're getting me in trouble, but I'm going to I'm going to do my best here. So one of the things we talked about was the diverse viewpoints that are represented at George Washington University Law School. I'm going to answer the question from my perspective because I too have taught constitutional law. I start my class talking about the U.S. Constitution and its formation. What were the problems that were being solved by creating a United States Constitution? Well, the problems lead me to understand that our Constitution has got to be able to address a wide variety of problems over history, right? 1789, our Constitution. If we don't want to change it every week, every month, every day, it has to be a living Constitution. You know what I'm saying, right?
We know what
you know exactly what I'm saying. Now, I also give my students writings that express the view of a living Constitution. One of my favorites is written by Thurgood Marshall, the late Justice of the Supreme Court, who was the first African-American justice on the Supreme Court. And I asked the students to read that alongside a really important critique of the living Constitution written by the late William Rehnquist, who thought the living Constitution was the worst way to think of law, and constitutional law in particular. He was an originalist. He believed that the way to interpret the law was by looking at the founders, the Constitution, looking at the founders' intent, limiting oneself to the explicit language of the words in the Constitution, and not allow living problems to change interpretations. So I would answer, how do I see the law? I see the law in tension. I see the law developing. I see the law as dynamic. And I see the law as a legal realist.
So the law school see the law as something that changed.
Now you can't get me in that much trouble.
Okay. No.
One of the best things about GW Law is that I have colleagues who I respect and admire immensely who absolutely vehemently disagree with me.
Oh, okay.
So I am the dean, and I speak for the law school on many topics, but not on how we see the Constitution or how we see the law.
Yeah.
Because there are many viewpoints, and that's a dynamic way
To see the law.
Yeah. That's a very good reason to
That's
come to
very-
GW. You won't have just one view.
No, perfect. And that's a strength
Yes.
for the university and for the
Yes.
law school.
Yeah.
Definitely. Thank you. Sorry for that question, but
No. Thank you for letting me go on and on. How did I do, Professor?
Excellent.
I'm okay?
Yeah,
Okay.
perfect. I have another question. Well, first of all, the experimental education model of GW universities is amazing. I have learned a lot of during the day. But I wonder, in your experience, what do you think is like the biggest challenge in law education, like nowadays?
Good question.
It's a great question. You want to go first? I think both of us have an answer. One of the biggest challenges in legal education, one is practical and one is theoretical, right? The biggest challenge in legal education right now is one of the biggest challenges in law generally, and that is to bring diverse and divisive viewpoints together, right? Our country's view of the law, its role, and the role of government is very divided. Very differing perspectives. Now, this has been true from the founding of our Constitution. Remember, we came together because one group thought we should have a very large, very centralized federal government, and another group thought we should have a very decentralized government where the power rested in the states, the United States of America. Those two sides vehemently disagreed. That remains one of the biggest problems in law today. So we just had an election, it was almost split down the middle. Half the country loves the person who has just become our new president. Half the country does not, right? So the law school's role, and here I believe uniquely GW is the best situated for this problem solving, right? The law school's role is to teach in a way that will help bring those diverse viewpoints to solution so that we can move forward and protect democracies, protect the climate, protect what we have in populations, right? So here the history of GW law is particularly important. We were founded in 1865. The pin I wear always has GW law established in 1865. You're a historian. I know you know that that was the end of the United States Civil War.
Wow.
No more divisive time in the country's history than at the very conclusion of the Civil War. Well, there's this beautiful photograph, historic photograph, that is a depiction of the Union Army, the triumphant army that kept the United States together, brought the seceding states back together, marching down Pennsylvania Avenue. Capitals in the background, and if you know your geography, GW Law is right down the street. That picture was taken in May of 1865. GW Law was opened, its predecessor university was opened in August of 1865. What does that tell you? That tells you we are the law school that has in its DNA the need for lawyers to bring a country together. The need for lawyers to solve this biggest problem of divergent, polemic, vehemently opposed viewpoints. In order for a country to stand, a corporation to stand, a family to stand, to go forward, we have to bring them together. That's the biggest problem. The other practical problem is jobs. People need jobs.
Okay, wow. Wow, very, very illustrated answer. Very, I truly enjoy. So how? I mean, currently I know that I would like to ask this question to Joshi. How many nationalities enjoy the law school per year? Where they're from? Can you talk us about the international environment at the law school?
Sure. So to give you context, we have 41 countries in our LLM program this year. And that's the LLM program. We also have international students coming in from various parts of Asia and Europe to do the JD program. So it's not just the LLM program that brings in students from across the globe, it's also our JD program. But we have 41 countries, and they're coming in from common law, from civil law. Students who have only studied Sharia law are now coming to the U.S. to get a better understanding of how the U.S. legal system works and getting an understanding of their colleagues and the legal systems that they're coming from. Because it's not just about the students, it's also about the discussion in the classroom. And I always say that as the students are learning from each other, as much as they're learning from the professors are also learning from our international students. Because they're bringing that viewpoint into the classroom that the professor may not necessarily have been familiar with. And I was just talking to somebody last week, and they said, wow, I was really, really nervous about raising my hand and challenging the professor because he said something about a law in my country that is now a little outdated. But I was brave enough to raise my hand and tell the professor, and he said the professor was so happy that the student volunteered the information and then asked him to elaborate more on the recent law that had been enacted, and thanked him for having the courage to come to the classroom and actually engage with the professor. And so you see all these different legal systems coming in and having this discussion within the classroom. So yes, it's a U.S. law school, but it's a global law school.
Wow, really, it's a great example.
Yeah.
Great example. Dean, I would like to know.
No, go ahead.
I would like to know about how do you see how do you see the incorporation of international law in the at the law school? Because I mean, many of our students, they want to focus on international law, and I mean, I ask this question because, as you know, when you see the Supreme Courts at the U.S., they normally prefer national law rather than international law, and some students may doubt about going to the States because of this fact. But I always say no. Even though that many lawyers in the U.S. ignore international law, but the universities are like how to say, focusing on international law. How do you see the role of international law in at the law school?
One of our top programs, for which we're always ranked in the top 5 in the country of all 200 law schools, is our International and Comparative Law program. It is one of the things that we're known for and have been known for a very long time. It is also one of the degrees, the LLM degrees, that's most sought after when students apply for a specialty. Am I right, Dean Joshi?
Absolutely.
Yeah. The International and Comparative Law degree is one of the most important ones. I want to pick up on a term that Professor Miguel said earlier, and that is experiential education. Experiential education, broken down quite simply, is bringing experience as the teacher in addition to the professor as the teacher. Experience as the instructor in addition to the book or the treatise as the instructor. For international and comparative law, this is especially important because although we sit in Washington, D.C., in order to be a global law school, we have to offer global experiences. Well, we do that in the LLM program, and Dean Joshi will tell you more about this, but we do this in the LLM program by taking students across the street to the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, or the World Bank. We do that, as I said, by bringing the United Nations thinkers into our classroom. Now, the dean, the subject matter dean of our International and Comparative Law program, is a scholar in her own right with a specialty in international human rights. So Dean Rosa Salario has written a book on the international human rights of women. She's an expert. She's done panels, conferences, and she brings that expertise into the educational program at GW Law.
Wow. It's amazing. It's very interesting to listen about this. Like very different education in some way, no? In relation with here our national university. And what in general, what recommendation can you give us to students why to study there in GW University?
I'm going to start and then let Dean Joshi finish for me.
Okay.
The first thing is what Roberto asked me about values. La UNAM is an enormously important public law school. The value of public education means that, I'm stunned the number of students that have access to a legal career, legal knowledge, legal information. You have 18,000 students. And that is a value of access to justice that we share at GW Law. The fact that our values align, a private and a public institution, I think that's so important. That's a really number one reason to study at GW in particular. All of the other reasons that I said earlier, our location, our intimacy, our size, our Washington, D.C. infused education, I want to say wrapped in all of those is the value that we place on giving access to justice, access to a legal education, so that people can go out, whether they choose to practice or not, whether they choose to be in the private sector or the public sector. The way that we value making education in the law available to all is a reason for our universities to collaborate.
Wow, that's very impressive.
And at GW Law, you may be a student, but your voice counts. It's very important. So you are a member of the academy. And yes, you may not be a scholar or a professor. You are only a student, but your voice is as important as the professors. And so in our law school, it's a community, because we're all learning from each other and we're learning together. And for us, I think that is the hallmark of our LLM program, that yes, you're here to learn, you are to get the degree, you're going to go on and do great things in your career, whether you go on to be a professor or you go on to corporate law, doesn't matter. The fact is that while you are with us, you are enveloped in the system of learning, and it's both professional and personal. And so the LLM program really, really, really allows our students to flourish, because we're giving them the opportunity to make themselves heard. Just what I said about that student in the classroom, right? So every voice counts. And just because you're a student doesn't mean you only go to class and then go to the library and study. If you have issues, you come to us. If we can problem solve them, we will help you find jobs. We will help you find internships. We will help you navigate the complexities of being in a U.S. law school, because we understand what it means to come from a system or a culture that is so vastly different from the U.S. So we want to make it as smooth a transition as possible. And so for that reason, we keep the LLM program small, so that we have this individualized attention to make sure that our students not just come in and get the degree, but they flourish, they thrive. And when they leave, they're going to have a completely different understanding of the law from when they started.
I'm going to just add to that no other program has Shehnaz Joshi. She is the secret sauce of our program, right? Yeah, it's true. It's true. I don't overstate it. Whatever country I've gone to, and we've only been here and had the privilege to be in Mexico City for 2 days, and the people that we have met that love her, that graduated long ago, 2011, 12, 13, 14, and embrace Dean Joshi because she cares so much about them. That's our secret sauce. Added to that, the student voice has made some changes in our program, right? We talk about the fact that we are an integrated program, that instead of being huge, 800 LLMs in our sister school down the street, right? God bless them. Wonderful school, wonderful program. Never going to happen at GW.
Never.
We are selective and intimate and small. Other programs isolate their LLM students in a separate program. Ours is integrated. Now that comes with some problems. We had some wrinkles to iron out. And who was it that helped us address those problems? Our students.
Wow.
Our LLM students said, we need a sense of community. So we created an in of court, right? We created an advisory board for the students who are LLM so that they could communicate with us regularly about their needs. They didn't get registered fast enough for this class, or they wanted to see more of this in their program, right? We're constantly listening and changing. But this in of court is so special because it creates a community of the LLM students themselves so that they're close with one another. They take weekly, non-academic lectures together, lectures on how to pass the bar, where to look for jobs, what are visa issues, right? And they do a little partying together also. They do a little sightseeing together. I like to run. I see them running together on the trails, right? So these are things. We have a job counselor, career counselor specific to the LLM program because their needs are different. And where did we hear about this? We hear about it from the students. So, yeah.
Wow. It's glad to know that there's a place, a law school in the state that really takes seriously students and really takes seriously their community, and their communities, their strength. The students are the strength. So glad to hear that. And building on that point, I would like to ask you a very important question regarding for those people who are interested to do a program with you. Imagine that someone applied to your law school, excellent statement of purpose, excellent marks at bachelor's, but that person couldn't met the 7 in IELTS. Instead, that person got 6.5. Will that person, future student, will be excluded to enjoy your wonderful community?
We don't deny or exclude somebody if they don't meet that magic number on the TOEFL or IELTS. We look at a lot of factors. Our application process and the review process is holistic. So as I mentioned earlier, we really look at the student who we want in our program to be dynamic, to be engaged, to have ideas about what they want to do as an LLM student. And when we see an overall picture of a student that is going to enrich our community, if the English is of concern, there are several options. We will ask the student to take the test again. We will do interviews. I do interviews. I ask our alumni to do interviews. We also have a 3-semester LLM program, so we can bring them in so that they can adjust to the academic pace slowly and take a legal English class at the same time. So there are a lot of options around this issue. It does not mean that if we see somebody coming in with a 95 on the TOEFL or a 6.5 on the IELTS, it means automatically denial. Not at all. If the student is qualified in all other ways, we will be happy to consider them.
And that politic is very important because it means that you are consistent with your policy of diversity, build up a great community. So many congratulations on that policy.
We work with these students one-on-one.
I'm going to add, I completely concur that we don't have a magic cutoff, not by any stretch of the imagination. I'm going to add the dean's perspective on this, that is that the student has to be able to succeed. I speak Spanish, but I can't succeed at La UNAM without having taken at least another year to get me ready to take my courses in Spanish. So we will be assessing, in addition to the score, whether the student can write the exams, participate in conversations, and succeed at GW. It is not possible to have the kind of intimate program that we have and not have excellence, right? And not have students who really can excel. So while the TOEFL score is not the only criteria, being able to function successfully way better than I could at La UNAM in Spanish is a requirement.
Wow. We have 2 questions less.
Yeah.
Okay.
To end
Well,
this program.
Shahrinas, in order to get to enroll to the LLM program, could you give us, 3 recommendations for the students so they can have like much possibilities to get enrolled?
Sure. So when students are looking to apply to GW, when you start the application process, it's very important to do your research and understand the type of program you're applying to, because that's going to be reflected in the personal statement that you are submitting as part of your application process. So what we look at very carefully, and this goes back to what I was saying earlier, is somebody who's going to be able to succeed in the program. And so when you are beginning the application process, take a lot of time to write this personal statement, because it is a reflection of who you are and what you want to accomplish as part of your LLM. Equally important are deciding who is going to recommend you, because recommendations carry enormous weight, because the student is asking somebody to tell us, tell the committee, tell the dean, that yes, the student has the ability to undertake an LLM program at a very rigorous U.S. law school and succeed. So it is very important to have letters of recommendation that come from individuals who know you well, not just somebody you took a class with, but somebody perhaps you have worked with, written a paper with, or if you're professionals, if you're already working, from somebody who you work closely with. So these are the 2 biggest factors. when it comes to the application process that we put a lot of weight into. Now, it's a holistic review, so we look at everything carefully, but again, because we value our students and we want to make sure they excel and succeed, we want to bring in students who are not just going to come in and go to class, go to the library, and go home. We really don't. That's not what our LLM program is. We want students to come in, to be part. Dean Matthew, just so that you know, we're creating a comparative law association as of this morning. So a student
Great.
came
The
up to
dean
me.
comes to Mexico to find out things like about my law school.
So, again, an example, the student looked at all the student organizations and said, there's a little niche I can fill, and came. And I said, absolutely, go talk to the SBA, go talk to Dean of Students, let's get this rolling. So these are the type of students we want, and we look forward to having them because we learn so much from them. So it's important that all of this is reflected in the application.
Okay, great,
Wow.
excellent.
And
Well-
last question to end
Yeah.
this program.
Well, before we go, I
sorry.
wonder, Dayna, if you can give us like a final message.
Final message.
That was one.
Related with the topic, no?
Okay. If you are looking for adventure, you're looking to change your life and change the world, then GW is the law school for you, right? If you are looking for someplace to just think deeply, rest a lot, you don't want to come to GW. We want students that are going to buckle their seatbelts and go for the adventure.
Thank you so much, and thank you too, Dean, for being here at UNAM. With hope that you allow us to build not just a normal relationship, to build us like a very strong partnership. Yes. Please allow us. We are tremendous happy that you are here, and we want you with your partners here in Mexico.
We thank you. We feel the warmth and the excitement of the potential of this relationship. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for being here. We're very excited. I think the same as Roberto. And well, we're waiting for the next program, next broadcast. Without ceasing, thank also Lalo Ramirez in the production and educational multimedia broadcast of Canal News for their support to make the transmission of this program possible. Thank you so much.
La Facultad de Derecho agradece a quienes realizaron este programa, conductores, invitados y productores, quienes participan de manera honoraria. En News, Canal Multimedia, Derecho a tus oídos.